Is the number one recruit in the country leaving Louisiana? Oh, a big, big recruiting shakeup. We're talking about it. Bonus coverage of Locked on LSU. Let's go.
You are Locked on LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks for making us your first listen every single day. We are free, available wherever you get podcasts, on YouTube as well. So do us a favor and please subscribe. A really significant Friday in recruiting circles. LSU landed a commitment from defensive lineman Buddy Mathis. We're going to get to that here in just a second. But the real news comes with the number one player in the country for the class of 2026. St. Aug defensive lineman Jahkeem Stewart, who is no longer St. Aug defensive lineman Jahkeem Stewart. We have been hearing for quite some time that Jahkeem Stewart was a candidate to reclassify. So I'll give you the background a little bit. Stewart is a 6'6", 275-pound behemoth of a defensive tackle. Because he's a class of 2026 prospect, he's entering right now his high school junior season. But it has long been rumored that Stewart was a candidate to reclassify to the class of 2025. That means he would effectively have enough credits to graduate early and sign in the 2025 class instead of waiting another year to 2026. Well, that had long been rumored. On Friday, it became closer to reality. Hat tip to ESPN. It was Eli Letterman who broke the news and spoke on the record with Stewart, who is leaving St. Aug in New Orleans. This is a quote from Jahkeem Stewart via ESPN. Quote, St. Augustine helped me become a way better man than I was going in there. It taught me a lot of things. My plan is to find a school that I'm looking for to really just help with my decision, a place that will better help me make the decision I'm trying to make. End quote. Stewart also said he plans to find a school and be enrolled somewhere Monday or Tuesday of this coming week. So that decision, you can put two and two together, is very clearly the decision to reclassify and enroll early. I can tell you from conversations that I've had, Jahkeem Stewart plans not only to reclassify, but to enroll in January. So this coming January, Jahkeem Stewart, who should be entering the second semester of his junior year of high school, will have graduated in December and will enroll in the college he chooses in January so as to go through spring football and be ready to play for the 2025 season wherever he picks. So a couple of questions linger. Namely, if he's not going to be at St. Aug, where is he going to go? And is he going to pick LSU? Couple of things there. Let's start with the first one. There have been rumors about the possibility of Stewart leaving the state, maybe going to one of the academies like IMG or something like that. Conversations I had Friday evening lead me to believe he's probably not leaving the state of Louisiana. That could certainly be a possibility, but the most realistic probability is that he'll land at East St. John. So he's from Reserve. It's where his family lives. And he could enroll at East St. John and be eligible because he lives in that district. So if you were going to move schools, you couldn't necessarily leave your district without a proof of residence in the district for the school you're going to, without proof of residency in that district if you wanted to be immediately eligible. Because if he were to go to East St. John, where his family lives, and that's his primary residence, then he could be, in theory, immediately eligible by the NCAA, or excuse me, by the LHSAA. So that's one that would make a lot of sense if he ends up at East St. John in Reserve. But no matter what, this is a prospect that LSU is going to have to fight for right up until signing day in the December signing period, in the early signing period. Jahkeem Stewart is, as I mentioned, the number one player in the country for 2026. Should he reclassify to 2025, as we all expect he will be the top uncommitted player in the country for the class of 2025. He is a different level, different caliber of prospect. Now, we could look at all the different places that are recruiting Jahkeem Stewart, and he's got offers from everybody. But if you look at the On3 recruiting prediction machine, it gives LSU a 91.1% chance of landing Jahkeem Stewart. But it's far from over. USC, Oregon. Those, as I'm told, are the primary competitors. Oregon, as we know, with Phil Knight's NIL bankroll, can pay big money. And whoever lands Jahkeem Stewart, make no mistake, it is going to take big money to land Jahkeem Stewart. Southern Cal is another one in the mix. The defensive line coach from Southern Cal is from New Orleans and has a pretty good relationship with Stewart already. Remember, Jahkeem Stewart was in Las Vegas for the LSU Southern Cal game this past weekend. Told Stewart thinks very highly of LSU defensive line coach Bo Davis, who is arguably the best defensive line coach and best recruiter at that position in America. That's a huge feather in the cap for LSU. Also, there's the Frank Wilson factor. Frank Wilson is a St. Aug graduate. He's LSU's associate head coach, running backs coach, and generally speaking, Frank Wilson, if he's recruiting heavily a player out of New Orleans, he's going to get him. Remember, a decade ago, it was Frank Wilson who led the charge to get Leonard Fournette from St. Aug to LSU. And it's Frank Wilson who's leading the charge right now on Jahkeem Stewart, along with defensive line coach Bo Davis. Frank Wilson is, for lack of a better phrase, New Orleans high school royalty. It is a fraternity of high school coaches in New Orleans. Frank went to St. Aug. He was the head coach at O. Perry Walker, and he's become a major college football coach, both as a head coach and as an assistant, and he's got inroads everywhere. So Frank Wilson, the allure of staying home in Louisiana are things that LSU certainly has an advantage on. But make no mistake, LSU is going to need a bankroll to get Jahkeem Stewart. And keep in mind, it's also for the 2025 class, which includes 5-star Bryce Underwood, 5-star DJ Pickett, 5-star Harlem Berry. That's expensive, y'all. So it's going to be a very concerted effort by LSU, pushing right until signing day to make sure Jahkeem Stewart ends up as a part of the class of 2025, if in fact he does reclassify, which all signs point to that's exactly what this is about. But Stewart took visits to Ohio State. He took visits to Auburn. I'm told those aren't necessarily real players at this point. It's probably a 3-horse race: LSU, Southern Cal, Oregon. LSU probably in the pole position, but a lot of work to do for a prospect that 3 of the 4 recruiting services nationally say is the number 1 overall player in the country. One of the things I always look at whenever we start talking about elite prospects, especially in the line of scrimmage, is why would you want to reclassify and go early? Because, look, you're a 6'6", 275-pound defensive lineman going against high school offensive lineman. I was a high school offensive lineman at 6 foot 230. That monster would have annihilated me. And the word that keeps coming back when I bring that up is every time he went to an elite camp, he just absolutely ragdolled the elite offensive linemen in this class. So he's a guy that would transition seamlessly to the college level and would be an impact guy day one on LSU's defensive front if the Tigers are, in fact, able to land him. And that day may be closer than we originally thought. If, in fact, Stewart does reclassify for the class of 2025, that decision could be coming as early as next week. But the first move of that was leaving St. Aug, which was not going to allow him to graduate early and reclassify. That's the important note here. He was not going to be able to reclassify. So, in effect, leaving St. Aug now is a pretty clear connect the dots of what Jahkeem Stewart's plan is. As this develops, we will absolutely be all over it, because this would, in effect, if LSU lands Jahkeem Stewart for the class of 2025, bolster LSU to the number 1 class in the country, and it would be a consensus. And that would be a gigantic position of need. You want to start to rebuild and bolster that defensive line? Dom McKinley a year ago, Jahkeem Stewart now, pretty good way to do it. Okay, it's Locked On LSU, your team every day. The Tigers have already bolstered their 2025 defensive line. Buddy Mathis committed on Friday. I'll give you a thumbnail on him next. Locked On LSU, your team every day. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. We're also brought to you by Factor, and I've told you my personal testimony here over the past couple of weeks. Y'all, I am a meal prep service subscriber. For years, my wife would spend all day Sunday meal prepping for us for the week. And at one point, I said, we're going to give you your Sundays back. We sought out meal prep services. And over the years, I've been subscribed to 3 or 4. And about 4 or 6 weeks ago, the subscription service that I belonged to went out of business. And I went seeking a new one and found Factor. And I will tell you unequivocally, and I'm not reading from, they gave us a script, I ain't reading it. Unequivocally, Factor is the best tasting, best quality, easiest, best value product from the meal prep services that I've ever been subscribed to. The fact that they ship it to your door with the freezer packs, so as they stay fresh. The fact that they are never frozen, so you're eating fresh meals. They are chef-curated meals. And not only that, you can choose whatever meal you want based on whatever different meal type. There's Calorie Smart, there's Protein Plus, there's Keto, which is what I use. But you can try them all. They're fresh, never frozen, dietitian approved, and you heat and eat in 2 minutes. You just perforate the film, put it in the microwave for 2 minutes, and then voila, you've got a fresh, delicious meal that's sensible, that's healthy, that's calorie conscious. I just can't, I can't recommend that highly enough from my own personal experience. There's no prep, there's no cooking, there's no cleanup, there's nothing. And right now, our friends over at Factor have a deal for you, our listener and viewer. So head over to factormeals.com/lockedoncollege50. That's factormeals.com/lockedoncollege50 and use the code lockedoncollege50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That's code lockedoncollege50 at factormeals.com/lockedoncollege50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. Well, so much of the conversation, of course, around Jahkeem Stewart and whether or not he might reclassify for the class of 2025. Never the matter, LSU landed another defensive tackle for the class of 2025 when Walter Buddy Mathis out of the state of Georgia committed on Friday. He's a 6'2", 285-pounder out of Calvary Baptist Day in Savannah, Georgia. And I always say it, not necessarily interested in your star rating as much as I am what your offer list looks like. How about this? LSU, Clemson, Auburn, Miami, South Carolina, Alabama, Georgia, Texas, Tennessee, Oregon, Southern Cal, Missouri, Florida, Georgia Tech, North Carolina, Virginia Tech, NC State, West Virginia. You get the point. Offers from everybody. Offers from everybody. And Bo Davis went in there and got the commitment from Buddy Mathis. So if you're interested in the star ranking, he is a consensus. He's a 3-star. Rivals does have him as a 4-star, the 25th best defensive lineman in the country. In the composite, he's the 42nd best defensive lineman in the country, the 53rd best player in Georgia. He's the top 500 player overall. And Bo Davis was the primary recruiter. Blake Baker was the secondary recruiter. And what this means for LSU now on that defensive front is that you have 4 interior defensive linemen already committed now for the class of 2025, with the possibility of Jahkeem Stewart being added as well. So just kind of as a quick recap, of course, Zion Williams out of Lufkin, Texas, is a guy that Bo Davis got almost immediately. 6'3.5", 330 pounds. He's committed. You got Brandon Brown, the interior defensive lineman out of Melbourne, Florida, 6 foot 290. LSU flipped him from Texas. Buddy Mathis, who we just mentioned, also part of the class. And then Dylan Battle, you might remember. Dylan Battle was a guy that Bo Davis was recruiting, 6'3", 300 pounds out of Arlington, was recruiting to the University of Texas. Had a chance to talk to Dylan Battle's high school coach, and we played part of it for you here on the show, where Bo Davis, as soon as he took the LSU job, went to Dylan Battle's high school and saw his coach, and the coach told him, I didn't know LSU was high on Dylan. And he said, I don't know where he is on their board. I haven't even, had to sneeze. I said, I haven't even been at the office yet, but he's high on my board, and wherever I go, I want him. And ultimately they got him. So the question is, do you trust Bo Davis? So that's 4 defensive tackles already for the class of 2025, with the possibility, of course, of adding Jahkeem Stewart, a 5th defensive tackle for the class of 2025. You want LSU to look at the line of scrimmage like it did when it was dominating and winning championships? Bo Davis, and of course, on the offensive side of the ball, Brad Davis has already taken care of that, and Bo Davis is working on the defensive side as well, along with Kevin Peoples. So Buddy Mathis, part of LSU's class of 2025, the 4th defensive lineman, the 26th commit overall, and LSU right now ranked 3rd nationally, 2nd in the SEC, only Ohio State and Alabama ahead, but that could very well change in the coming days and weeks as we get closer to the early signing period. Okay, that's going to do it for us here on this bonus edition of Locked On LSU. Do us a favor, if you're listening on podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Rate us, leave a review. If you are watching on YouTube, thank you so much. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Smash that like button, hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video. And be sure to let a friend know that if they love the Tigers, we got you here every single day, and sometimes twice a day for bonus coverage. It's Locked On LSU, your team every day.